If you ever believed that Texas was the land that could make the American dream shine the brightest, then perhaps it's time for you to reconsider. Right behind the walls adorned with sparkling lights and the magnificent office buildings lies an underground world that no one wants to mention. Tent camps stretching under the bridges, people huddled by the roadside, and untold painful stories. A silent yet ruthless tragedy is destroying the dreams of millions of Texans. In this documentary, we will unveil the haunting truth about the homelessness crisis right in the heart of Texas, where the glow of the American dream is out of reach and every glimmer of hope is gradually suffocated in the darkness of injustice, living costs, and social indifference. If in your heart you still believe in a better America, then stay until the very last moment. Because behind the bustling streets are truths that you may have never dared to face. Do you remember the time in the 70s when Texas was still a livable state? A vast land, warm climate, abundant opportunities, and a cost of living sufficient for people to comfortably think about retirement. They sell their houses in Ohio, Illinois, or California and flock to Texas with a suitcase, a little savings, and a lot of hope. They rebuild their dreams in small houses with a decent job and a future for their children. That was the American dream, and Texas was once where that dream began. But now, everything has changed. Slowly, quietly, and no one noticed until it became too late to save anything. The American dream in Texas did not collapse with a loud bang. It disintegrates bit by bit, like a roof tile being swept away by the wind, until you look up and realize the house is no longer there. The homelessness crisis in this city can no longer be hidden. More than 27,377 people are living homeless in Texas, a number that has nearly doubled in just 5 years. Perhaps in other major cities like Los Angeles or New York City, this number is just a small fraction. But these figures are not just soulless numbers counted on statistical tables. It is the difficult lives, the flesh and blood people, struggling every day on the streets to continue seeing the dawn for another day. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. Because thousands of other people not counted in the statistics are also in a high-risk situation. They live by couch surfing, temporarily residing in cars, or crammed into poorly lit and ventilated shared rental rooms. Therefore, just one unexpected medical bill, one job loss, or one separation can blur the line between having a home and losing everything. And then, everything gradually collapses, like a chain of dominoes, leading to serious consequences that make it certain that those who have fallen will not be able to recover. The American dream did not disappear overnight. It shattered slowly, piece by piece, like how a person who once had a home, a job, and hope becomes a name no one remembers, a face people avoid, a part of the problem that no one dares to confront. How many more people must sleep on the sidewalk? How many more dreams must rot in the darkness before we truly recognize the severity of this crisis? How many more people have to sleep on the sidewalk? How many more dreams have to rot in the darkness before we truly realize the severity of this crisis? Unlike in other states, where the homeless gather in tent camps along the streets, in Texas, where neighborhoods are continuously cleaned up to maintain the city's image, they are pushed to the fringes, living in abandoned cars, in drainage ditches, in underpasses, and now in trees. In northeast Austin, amidst the dusty canopies along Highway 183, there is a makeshift house, built from scrap wood, ropes, and pieces of netting salvaged from construction sites. No address, no door, just a few materials patched together into a small room, enough for someone who has lost everything to still call it home. A man lives there, living like a lost bird, no longer having a nest to return to, quietly hiding under the shade of a tree to conceal his very existence.
By being homeless, I'm treated like I'm not human, like I don't deserve anything, it's bad.
He used to have a stable job and a decent income, living a life that many admired. But just after one incident, a misplaced trust, everything collapsed. He lost his job, lost his home, and lost his place in society. Now, he lives on a treetop and is treated as if he were not human. The story of homelessness is no longer a distant tale reserved for anyone. It has become a pressing issue, a wave of crisis, ready to sweep away homes along with the entire dreams of someone who once had a complete life. According to the latest report, up to 48.7% of the homeless in Austin currently live completely outdoors, without access to any form of official shelter. In areas like Fort Worth or San Antonio, shelters are always full, forcing hundreds of people each night to find some nook in the city to quietly hide. In a modern city, with free Wi-Fi in parks and food delivery by drone, there are still people eating dinner from half-open cans of beans, hanging halfway on a tree branch. Those homeless birds didn't fly to Texas to ask for anything. They used to live here. They used to work here. They were simply pushed out of the system, quietly, without anyone to defend them, without anyone remembering their names. And perhaps the most haunting thing is that no one can say for sure that tomorrow the person who has to find a branch to sleep on won't be you or a loved one in your family. If even the mainland no longer has a place for a person, then where will the American dream finally reside? If you have ever driven through the bright boulevards of Houston or stopped by the Central Square in Dallas for a cup of coffee, you might see nothing but a prosperous and vibrant city. But walk a few more blocks, turn down an alley between abandoned buildings, and you will see another America, a quiet, broken, and abandoned America. In Texas, there is no longer the concept of a homeless area. Because the homeless are no longer allowed to gather, they are pushed away, dispersed, driven out like stains that need to be erased from the city's picture. In an area near I-45, just a 10-minute drive from downtown Houston, there is a mini-city that no one wants to acknowledge. Long lines of tents piled on top of each other like weeds after the rain, torn and filled with trash, jostling between plastic bins, shopping carts, and hundreds of discarded items. No streetlights, no toilets, and no signs indicating that more than people are living here. Except for the hopeless eyes of over 3,280 people barely surviving on the sidewalks under the scorching midday sun of 40 degrees. Some have called these areas the basement world of Texas, where people forgotten by society are pushed into and then locked away. And Houston is not the only red zone. In Fort Worth, a camp by the Trinity River was once cleared out. But less than 3 months later, tents sprang up again. Not because they like living like this, but because even if they are chased out of the refugee camp, they have nowhere else to go. We do not get to choose where to live. We only choose places where we are least likely to be chased away, a middle-aged homeless man shared while welding a stove made from a soda can. The urban cleanup campaigns that the authorities implement often end with the sound of bulldozers crushing tents and the police using loudspeakers to order people to leave. But where to go? No shelter, no voucher, no alternative solution. Only the saying remains, this is not a place to live. These areas are not just temporary shelters. They are symbols of a forgotten reality. That Texas is creating human rights-free zones, where existence is taxed and deemed illegal. And when night falls, where once there were bustling street corners, shopping centers, or busy thoroughfares, suddenly turns into a shadow. Local residents avoid it. Children are warned not to go near. The police patrol, not to protect, but to disperse. As for the people inside, they quietly huddle deep within the tent, clutching their bags tightly as if they were part of their own bodies. Those graveyards are increasingly spreading, not only in the city centre, but also in the suburbs, rural areas, and old industrial zones. And the frightening thing is not that they exist, but that they are becoming normal. So when will progress no longer be an excuse? And when will we look back and ask ourselves, is this still the America we once believed in? In the past, living in Texas meant you had settled down. The sprawling suburbs, where house prices were once so low that even poor immigrants could own a home after just a few years of hard work. For many Americans over 55, Texas is not just a place to settle, it is a promise of stability, a happy ending to a long string of hard work. But today, even a tree canopy can become the final refuge for someone who once had a home. Unlike other states, where the homeless can still gather in tent camps or public shelters, in Texas, they are forced to disappear from sight. The Cleaning the City campaigns take place regularly. Tents are dismantled, shelters are strictly monitored, and the homeless are forced to retreat to the outskirts where no one wants to see them. A report shows that nearly 49% of the homeless in Austin currently cannot access any form of official shelter. In Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, the support centers are perpetually overwhelmed, pushing thousands of people onto the streets each night, searching for cracks to survive like shadows. But if we only look at the numbers, we will miss the human aspect. Those people who once had lives like ours now have to hide in silence, because the price of development leaves no room for those who fall out of the cycle. From the residents' perspective, they do not want to see tents right in front of their homes. From the business perspective, the sight of homeless people hinders tourism and devalues real estate. As for the police, they are forced to enforce the policy, dismantling tents, driving people away, which many of them internally acknowledge does not make them feel proud. The cost of growth is sometimes not measured in profits, but in the people left behind. And in a country with a GDP ranking among the top in the world, is it fair that someone who once contributed to building this society now has only a branch to cling to for the night? So when will we dare to face the question? If even the mainland has no place for a person, where will the American dream finally reside? There is a bitter truth quietly spreading from every corner, every state, every bus station and park bench in Texas. That is, the elderly are becoming the first forgotten homeless generation in American history. They were once the pillars. The construction workers sweat under the Texas sun. The teachers who taught an entire generation how to read. The veterans returned from the war with scars in their hearts, but continue to pay taxes, work, raise families, and contribute to the community. But when they need care, rest, and safety, society turns its back on them. What has pushed those who were once stable into this harsh line? The rent is the first knife. In just 5 years, the average rent in Houston and Austin has increased from $800 to over $1,400 per month. But pensions have remained unchanged. The subsidy was cut. Medicare does not cover rent. And so, just one serious illness, or one rent increase, and they fall out of their own home. No one to catch them. What about the children? Many elderly people once thought that their children would be their final refuge. But modern life, high costs, insufficient space in the house, or simmering generational conflicts, these have gradually blurred that bond. What about the government? The affordable housing subsidy programs have waiting lists that stretch for years. Meanwhile, the shelters are not designed for the elderly. High stairs, lack of medical care, no privacy. And so they choose to live alone, in their cars, in the park, or under the bridge. For the police, encountering an elderly person sleeping on a bench is sometimes more heartbreaking than coming across a group of tents. But they are also powerless. There is no place to take the elderly, no mandatory care laws, no budget to address the root cause. And so, each week, another elderly man or woman appears on the list of new homeless individuals, not because they haven't tried, but because they have lived too long to be forgotten. The issue here is not just homelessness, but a moral crisis. We are living in a society where those who have sacrificed their entire lives for the community do not even have a safe place to sleep when they grow old. And it's not because they don't deserve it, but because no one remembers that they deserve it. So if the people who once built the foundation of America no longer have a place in today's society, then who among us will truly be safe in the end? Can you imagine a childhood without a bed to sleep in, without a classroom to go to, without a future to hope for? In Texas today, that scenario is no longer a fantasy. Thousands of children are growing up amidst the sound of truck horns and the darkness under bridges, not because they have done anything wrong, but simply because their parents are poor. According to data from the Texas Homeless Education Office, there were over 114,000 homeless students recorded in the past school year. An unprecedented number. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because there are many children who are never brought into the system. They have no address, no paperwork, and sometimes no one knows they exist. Those children don't need to commit a fault to be punished. They just need to be born into a family that can't afford rent. In Austin, there are invisible camps, where parents set up tents among the trees, trying to keep their children clean, study by flashlight, and avoid being discovered. If discovered, they could be arrested for child neglect, or forced into overcrowded, dangerous shelters where children have to sleep next to strangers, addicts, and without any solid roof over their heads. From the community's perspective, many people believe that homeless children are their parents' problem. But in reality, it is the system itself that has cast them to the streets. Housing prices in Texas have increased by more than 40% over the past 5 years, while the minimum wage has hardly changed. A working-class family, even with both parents working full-time, cannot afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Austin or Houston, and so they broke apart, not out of laziness, but because the system no longer has room for low-income earners. Nearby businesses see children playing behind the garbage dump or standing in line to receive food aid from charitable organizations. Many people feel uneasy and sympathetic, but there are also stores that actively chase the homeless children away from the parking lot. They don't want to lose customers. Even childhood is considered a threat to the image of the city. Meanwhile, social workers, police officers, and teachers, those who interact directly with the children, are becoming exhausted. Resources are lacking, support lists are long, intervention programs are budget cut. And with each child slipping out of the education system, another future is shut down. If America once prided itself on being the land of opportunity, then what opportunity will we offer to the generation born into poverty, lost in their own homeland? Or one day, they will stop dreaming, simply because they have never known what hope is. A person falls. There should be someone to catch them. But in Texas today, when someone slips out of a stable life, the only thing waiting for them below is emptiness. We used to believe that America had a safety net, shelters, welfare, healthcare programs, unemployment insurance, non-governmental organizations. But what is happening in Texas shows that this network is no longer a cushion. It has become a torn net, wide, thin, and indifferent. In Texas, many assistance programs only apply to certain areas or require digital records and updated paperwork. For those who have lost their homes, lost their documents, and have no permanent address, every procedure is an insurmountable wall. They don't need money, they need a hand to pull them back from the brink, but no one extends a hand. In Austin, many shelters require homeless people to line up from 3 p.m. to secure an overnight stay. Some places only accept men, some do not allow personal belongings, and some only accept people with valid documents. People with mental illnesses, the elderly, single mothers, all are filtered out of the priority list because the system is overwhelmed. And in the cold, desperate hunger They are denied simply because they don't have the proper documents. Nearly 62% of homeless people in Texas have mental health issues but do not have access to adequate medical support. The community health centers are overwhelmed. The mentality of pride, fear of being labeled as patients, makes them avoid the few remaining services. Adding to this is the continuous budget cuts. In 2023, the federal budget for affordable housing programs in Texas decreased by nearly 12% compared to the previous year. The state government focuses on image management, pushing the homeless out of the city center instead of addressing the root of the problem. And then, amidst the numbers, records, and procedures, there are people. It is the sleep huddled under the rain. It is the times of filling out applications only to be rejected. It is the shake of the head from the system, not because they are undeserving, but because the system no longer has room for them. Texas used to be a symbol of opportunity, a place where anyone could rise up if they tried. But nowadays, even if someone wants to rise up, they no longer have a place to hold on to. The price for rapid development is not only the loss of land and homes, but also the loss of the values that America once took pride in. And if even a large state like Texas cannot keep the promise of no one left behind, then what does that promise mean for the rest of America? Texas, once the most glamorous stage for the American dream, is now the most painful place for its curtain call. Texas was once the perfect stage for the American dream. This place once offered millions of people a chance to start over, whether you were a farmer, an oil worker, a tech engineer, or just someone looking for an affordable home to nurture hope. But now, that stage is closing, and what remains is a scene of devastation that all of America should look at closely. Because if Texas, the symbol of energy, prosperity, and the land of the free, cannot even maintain dignity for its own people, then what can America hold on to? The rent prices in major cities like Austin, Houston, and Dallas have doubled in just a decade. The average salary has not kept up with inflation, not to mention the costs of health insurance, food, and utilities. An accident, a serious illness, a month of unemployment, and you could free fall without any safety net to catch you. Support systems such as shelters, temporary housing, and food aid are all overwhelmed. The police have been tasked with cleaning up the streets, but there is no answer to the question. After cleaning up, where will those people go? In Texas now, the homeless do not just live under bridges or in tents. They sleep in Walmart parking lots, curl up on benches at bus stops, or pitch tents right behind medical centers, places they can no longer afford to be treated. Texas is no longer an exception. It is a warning. A state once admired for its affordable housing, entrepreneurial opportunities, and kind and resilient people, now faces a harsh reality. Technology is booming. Real estate is soaring, and people are being pushed to the margins. Texas today, with tents on the sidewalks, the elderly begging for water, children studying under the glow of bus lights, is a draft of America's future if we do not change. If we do not acknowledge that this issue is serious, if we continue to blame instead of taking action, if the government and the community still think that it won't happen to us, then tomorrow, another city, another state, will follow in Texas's footsteps. And if even Texas, once considered the best replica of America, is losing itself, then is there anywhere left that can protect the American dream? Texas was once the promised land, where people came to start anew. But now, the very place that once held so much hope is filled with the most painful questions of modern America. Texas was once the promised land, where people came to start anew. But now, the very place that once held so much hope is filled with the most painful questions of modern America. Beneath the office buildings are makeshift shanties. Next to the highways are people huddled in the dark. They used to be soldiers, teachers, workers, neighbors. Now, they no longer have a home, no longer have a place to call their own. And the frightening thing is, this can happen to anyone. No longer just a homelessness issue. This is a social ethics issue, about how a nation treats those who once trusted and dedicated themselves to it. What do you think about the crisis in Texas? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. This video is created to analyze and reflect a real slice of life in Los Angeles, with the aim of sparking reflection and positive dialogue within the community. All information, images, and data are illustrative, sourced from public and reliable sources. We do not hold any individual or organization responsible, nor do we draw absolute conclusions. Viewers are encouraged to approach the content with an open mind and continue exploring from various perspectives.